to the Frugalpreneur podcast. I am your host, Sarah St. John, and my guest today is the CEO and founder of 10 to 8, which is an appointment scheduling app. Welcome to the show, Matthew Cleevely.
Hi, great to be here.
Well, thanks for joining me today. Can you give us a little bit of your background and how you ultimately how you got the idea to start 10 to 8?
So my background, well, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and I kind of think if you imagine sitting around having a family meal at the dinner table, and the kind of questions that would get banded around, it's kind of the typical things which would be banded around are things like how many trucks is it going to take to move the Great Pyramid of Giza. And suddenly conversation stops whilst three very competitive siblings try and work out an answer. And it's kind of slightly odd upbringing, but I think ever since I was slightly too young to work, I would write to companies in Cambridge. So growing up in Cambridge, which has got a kind of its own version of Silicon Valley called Silicon Fen, and I'd be writing to companies asking for jobs every summer. So I think my first ever job was dismantling computers for a telecoms consulting company. And I got marched out of the office on day 2 when the head of HR discovered how old I was. So I was technically not I was about 6 months too young to be legally allowed to work in the UK. Anyway, so yeah, I've ever since then I've been kind of working with startups, working with technology companies, kind of in my spare time, from designing mouse mats to building accountancy database software to planning spectrum analysis and radio frequency analysis tools, and building business plans. And I think I've done some patent stuff around biotech. All kind of whilst I was growing up and whilst I was at university as summer jobs. So I've kind of always been interested in new businesses, new technology, and new ideas, really. And that's kind of part of me. And then I kind of I went to university, got a master's in engineering, went to another university, got a master's in economics, went to another university, started a PhD actually in entrepreneurship. And true to form, dropped out of my PhD in entrepreneurship to start a company. So that's kind of, and all the time working, as much, as I was allowed to, and possibly a little bit more, working for, really interesting companies all the time. And so I just love working with new companies, working to create things and thinking of new ideas and technologies and the application of them. So yeah, and then so back a long time ago now, me and a friend were talking to a dentist about the problems of managing his dental practice. And one of the biggest problems he had was that his customers were not very organized, or rather that they wouldn't turn up when they said they would. And so he had usually this kind of really difficult choice that he could either kind of plan for the full capacity. So say he was seeing 10 patients in a day, he could either plan to see those 10 patients in a day, in which case, likely as not, 1 or maybe even 2 wouldn't turn up, in which case he'd be sitting idle, or his hygienist would be sitting idle, which is a big waste of resources. Or he could say, well, usually at least 1 person misses their appointment, maybe 2, so I'll book 11 people in for the day. And then on most days it would be fine, but on some days he'd be working until 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock into the evening, and he wouldn't be getting home to his family. So we went in and we started talking to everyone who worked there, because it's best not to take kind of the dentist who, he's not actually in charge of the diary, but actually go and talk to people who manage the diaries and manage time. And we looked at the kind of practice management software in dentistry, and we realized that it wasn't solving one of the fundamental problems in the business, which was, are you able to organize your customers really simply? Are you able to do things really easily, quickly, and then the customers actually turn up and have all the information at their fingertips for actually making sure they're going to get to their appointment on time? Have they done the right things? Have they brought the right things with them? And so we realized that this was a kind of a fundamental problem to all businesses, and it was really a problem that just hadn't been solved. And the other thing that we noticed was that just how costly this was. We looked at the amount of time that people waste when they're scheduling an appointment, when they're not really using any particular tools such as ours. And we realized that on average, they were wasting 10 minutes per booking of person time. And so that's why 10 to 8 was founded. We take 10 minutes of wasted time and turn it into 8 seconds of automation. So that's where 10 to 8 comes from. And we realized the other key observation about 10 to 8 is that whenever something went wrong, whenever anyone was uncertain about what was going on, they picked up the phone. So it was always actually about not a perfect diary system, not a good calendar, but a good communication system. So a really good diary system that organizes people, that lets people know where, that gets people together at the right time, that organizes things, is actually a communication system fundamentally. So that's why we built 10 to 8, and that's how we built 10 to 8. We built 10 to 8 from the ground up as a communication scheduling tool to help people get together at the right time.
That's interesting hearing what the 10 to 8 means. That was actually one of the things I was curious about. I was thinking it was like, like 9 to 5, like your average work schedule. But I'm like, but who wants to work 10 to 8? That can't be the reason. But yeah, so I use 10 to 8. I've used a couple other, calendars or scheduling apps, but I have found that 10 to 8 is the most comprehensive and affordable. I mean, first of all, it's the only one I know of that allows you to have paid appointments without having to, that's available on the free plan. Of course, you pay like the, Stripe fee or whatever it might be. But other than that, yeah. So, I mean, that's what I was looking for, actually. That's how I decided initially on 10 to 8 was because I wanted to start with a free plan, but no other place had a free plan that offered the ability to have paid booking. So, but now that I've been using it, I love the communication aspect of it where like you can communicate through the system versus having to like email the person directly. It's all through because it's tied to their email, so you can like send an email or even a text through the system and then it goes to them. So that I found that really useful as well. And the fact that you can have multiple um like types of bookings or types of I guess types of I forget what y'all call it. Well, appointment types. And then how all the calendars sync up. Like you might have an hour available for this type of thing and 30 minutes for this type of thing, but then like it just knows when you're booked and all of that. So I love it.
And it's great to hear. But I'm really pleased you said that, because I think that when we started 10 to 8, it was at a time when online cloud SaaS software was just taking off, and me and the other guys who were founding it, we really felt this kind of visceral dislike of SaaS software that had a really restrictive free trial, or kind of basically let you create an account for free, but and every feature you actually wanted to use, you clicked and it said like, click here to pay more. And we found that really frustrating. And so yeah, we did that very deliberately to make sure that the free version gives you something very real in return in terms of what you can use it for. And that also, as you grow, as you get more comfortable with 10 to 8, and as you want some of those extra features, as you grow your business, you can then grow into the kind of the paid plans and things like that. And we see that a lot in the now we're a bit bigger, we see that in the overall statistics of the business. We see lots of people who kind of start on free, then upgrade, and get bigger and bigger over time. And it's really great to see, and it's really wonderful to hear. And the other thing about the communications element, it's for people who don't know 10 to 8, it's every booking is a conversation. So if you're the staff member or inside an organization that's making these bookings, you click on a booking, a bit like a Google Calendar or any other diary system. You click on it, but what you get is a chat history. It's like a chat window, but those chats are going over email or robo voice or SMS. And then if the customer responds to any of those, from their phone, replying to a text message or replying to an email, it all comes back into the same chat location. So you can just chat away about this booking and always see what was said and always see, what happened. Which is, I really like it. I think it makes it really powerful, again, as a communication tool to help organize appointments.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had any issues with someone not showing up since I've been using it
Brilliant.
because it's like it sends email reminders, and I know other platforms do too, but it 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 also sends text reminders, and then like yeah, the chat asks and stay in communication, and it's just I don't know. I think it really limits or narrows down, like, the possibility of someone not showing up because they forgot or something, because it's kind of hard to forget when you're getting email and text reminders and chat messages and all this kinda stuff, so
Yeah, and because you can set them up yourselves. You know your customers better than anyone else, so you can set up. I know that my customers need to be reminded. 51 minutes before their appointment, or by text message, or whatever it is that happens to fit your customer base. You can set that up, and that's the other thing, is that we're kind of sitting at the other end with kind of anonymized data, being able to see, well, actually, we think, and changing the defaults for the system to say, actually, this is the best for tweaking things, to make sure your customers are going to turn up. But that's one of the things we've been doing recently, which is really rewarding, is working with some healthcare providers, because if someone no shows, which is called in the UK, it's a DNA, which is did not attend.
Mhm.
So if someone DNAs in a medical context, that's potentially going to have negative outcomes for them, and increase the cost of healthcare as well down the line, if they forget to turn up to their appointment. So then going into kind of healthcare settings, especially at the moment, and being able to optimize capacity, so actually kind of increasing planned capacity without changing resources, because customers actually turn up at the right time in the right place, but then actually making sure, because they're turning up, we're helping healthcare providers deliver better health outcomes. It's been really rewarding in the kind of last 18 months. It's been something that we've really been focusing on.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it in terms of 'cause I'm coming at it from just an entrepreneurial perspective of, for podcast interview scheduling or, at some point if I do, like, coaching and consulting and things of that nature. But that's interesting about, like, dentists and healthcare and all of that. What is your primary, I guess, client base? Is it mainly in the healthcare and dental field, or
So
is it
very, very few of our customers are dentists. So I think that's the first thing I'll say. And it's a kind of interesting thing that in dentistry, what you have is a really, kind of slightly monolithic practice management software. So if you're running a dental practice, you have your dental practice management software, and that's how you run it. So the idea that you've got this thing that just is really good at scheduling appointments and organizing people, it's really good. And some dentists actually run it in parallel. So they have their practice management software and they have 10 to 8, but it's quite rare. And there's not that integration. So it's a more difficult market to go into. So we're seeing a lot more kind of take up in medical at the moment. But yeah, when we started, we thought, tell you what, this affects pretty much every business that has appointments, right? And specifically any business that has appointments where the people they're booking with kind of are out of their organizational influence, right? If you run a big company and you've got, everyone's on Outlook, and you say, right, everyone use Outlook, everything in Outlook is the law, obey your diary, right? You can organize within that. But the moment you've got customers or people who you want to meet up with who kind of you can't organize, who are outside your organizational influence, you have to communicate on their terms. And then when you're in that situation, 10 to 8 delivers a lot of value. And we realize that's a lot of businesses. We've got, and then so because we've got our free tier, we're freemium SaaS. So we've then been picked up all over the world for pretty much any use you can possibly imagine. So you can name a use case in a country, and I could find you at least one person using it for that. Our first trial customers, I think, was a piano tuner in Cambridge. Who was going around, house to house piano tuning. We've got banks in the US using us. We've got building societies and banks in the UK, healthcare providers. We've got a lot of universities using us for scheduling student bookings. We've got tutors. We've got lots of professional service companies, so accountancies and professional advisors like financial advisors. And then our favorite example is kind of alpaca farmers in New Zealand. So we've got a couple of those who are using 10 to 8. So if you want to visit an alpaca farm in New Zealand, there's some people using 10 to 8 for that scheduling as well.
Oh, that's cute. So, how long have y'all been around?
So we've been around for ages, far too long. We kind of, I think we started, we formed the company, and there's kind of a difference between forming the company and really getting going. But we formed the company 9 years and about 10 months ago. So getting on for 10 years. And then we really got going, about a year, 2 years later, when we got our first kind of funding. And then, I think one of the interesting things to do, especially from a frugalpreneur perspective, is talk about how we got it wrong the first time round. Because I think 10 to 8 is kind of in two distinct parts of its history. And the first part is where we raised money, built a great team, built a product that was extremely capable. But it was kind of, we made I think, a classic error of building things a bit too waterfall style. So you plan exactly what you're going to build, and then you go away and build it over the course of a few months, and then eventually you show it to some customers. And that was problematic because we were going after customers, this wide range of customers, a lot of whom very deliberately not particularly technically literate, and then providing them with something that was technically very capable and very configurable, but then was, as a result, very difficult for them to use or discover all of the features that were relevant to them. And so that was very problematic. So then we had to take more time to then redo the product, make sure it fitted the customer's expectations. And it's kind of the story that we had so much capability in the product, but it wasn't particularly discoverable by the customer. And it's really then been a proper exercise in user experience, in delivering things that really matter. And we had done all of the clever communication stuff, and I think the original beta version of the product had it hidden under the hood. So you had all these clever communications going out, but the person booking the appointments couldn't see them. And it was, so there were things like that, mistakes that we made along the way. And I think that certainly starting again, I think the lean start. So we would have pursued the lean startup fully from the beginning. We were absolutely read up on the lean startup, but we hadn't lived it yet. And then we had a funding round fall through, rebooted the company. We went from kind of 14, 15 people down to 3. And then we went full lean startup. And that was about 4 years ago or 5 years ago. And that's the second story of 10 to 8. And that's a lean startup with a very capable product, ruthlessly focused on what the customer's getting, and going from, a few hundred, maybe a few thousand customers to hundreds of thousands that we have now.
Lean startup like that. The book called Lean Startup?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
close to that kind of methodology, really. Yeah.
Did that seem to work pretty well?
Yes. And I think with all of these things, it's you read books, you think, yes, that's a good idea. And then you end up implementing your own version of it. So you don't ever stick entirely to the rules. But yes, we've been very efficient ever since. Very, very focused on revenue, very focused on building up our customer base, what the customers want. Very tight iteration loops. Very, let me phrase this properly. I don't want to say that there's very little planning, but there's very short gaps between planning and execution. So if we decide to actually deliver a feature, that feature gets delivered basically that week.
Oh, wow.
There's a backlog of thousands of things that we could be doing to improve the system. But our detailed planning is quite short, because we want, the world changes as well so fast. So I think
Mm,
that's one thing we realized, especially in the first iteration of 10 to 8, is that there were things that we planned, but by the time we had built something and then saw how people used it, whilst it was the next thing on the list, it was no longer the most important.
mm,
And actually, that just by having, just by seeing how people use things and the world moving on, the next thing on the list just changes.
mhm. Do you currently have, well, I'm sure you do, but, um, anything planned for the software that you're actually, able to talk about? Like any
Well,
upcoming features?
well, we've got some really cool things. I mean, there's lots of cool things planned. I'm always kind of, and actually reason I'm more hesitant to say what we've got planned is just because we could just decide to drop stuff that we've got planned for to come out in 3 months or something, just because those things change. I think the most exciting thing is possibly going to do a refresh of the user interface.
Mm, mhm.
So I think you'll see in our Facebook community, you'll actually see that we've started circulating potential redesigns. So that's
Oh.
that's that's an exciting thing. So I think the interface is, I think it's fine, but I think it can be a bit more modern, a bit more 2022.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to join that Facebook group and see those designs and stuff, because that's literally the only thing about the platform that I agree with you that it's more, I know when I first joined that I was kinda overwhelmed at first, like, all the features and the layout and stuff. Now I'm used to it, but I do think that there might be a way to make it, like you said, more, I guess, modern or easier to navigate so it's not maybe so overwhelming, so
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, again, ideologically, we wanted everyone to have access to the most powerful tools, or the most important tools, for running your business. And as such, there's lots of configurability and things like that that's exposed to someone who's just might be booking one appointment a week and doesn't care that much. And that's going to be the same, all the way up to an enterprise customer who's booking a million appointments a month, and needs to configure everything really perfectly, and they'll have like a team going over it and checking everything, and we'll be working with them to set up everything and optimize everything. So it's really, there's work going on now to simplify some of that, and absolutely improve that interface. And I'll ping you some designs actually,
Oh,
after this. You
awesome.
can have a look.
Oh,
um,
cool, I'd love that. Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate your time today. And, if people want to check it out, they can go to 10to8.com/frugalpreneur. And that's 10to8.com/frugalpreneur. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on that we hadn't yet?
No, I don't think so. Any other questions that you want to ask me?
No, I think you answered all the questions I had. And Um, hopefully, this was a kind of a good overview of the platform for people who are looking for, a way to schedule really any type of appointment. So,
Yeah. I think one of the other cool things about 10 to 8 is the integrations, and how much you can kind of
mm,
integrate into other
that's
things,
true.
which is fun. Um, I think integrating into other workflows and things like that is one of the things. Yeah, and I'm really, no, I'm not going to say about other features that are coming out. I just can't. It's just because they might get superseded by other ones that are also on the
Yeah.
horizon that are also cool. So I don't want to say anything's coming, but the user interface redesign is a priority for us now, and
Do you know
that's going to be good.
approximately when that might actually happen?
Um, Well, look, the designs, we're still basically at the moment, what we're doing is we're testing the designs, right? So we're trying to
Mhm.
find, and the key criteria for us are those designs. So they have to look and feel modern as the tool is technically, right? Because it's actually, under the hood, this is all, it's kind of, that's one of the things about 10 to 8 is, yeah, the user interface might not look quite so modern. It's because we're obsessed with the technology under the hood. And that's where the capability is. So, it's making sure that the user interface actually reflects what the platform's doing, and
Mhm.
and is as intuitive and usable as possible. But the other one is, accessibility testing, to make sure it's accessible for people. I'm dyslexic, so I really I,
Mm.
I have difficulty reading a lot of the time. So I'm quite keen to make sure it's as usable for other people as possible. So that there's testing around that. So the initial designs are kind of starting to crystallize at the moment. Those designs will get those will get formalized. They'll go to the engineering teams. The engineering team will start implementing them. And then because it's a user interface change, that means it's a big change for everyone. So it's probably one of those things that's actually going to take a surprisingly long amount of time rather than something that's going to land, in the next few weeks. So it's probably the longest project that we've had for a long time at 10 to 8. In terms of
Mhm.
we like delivering stuff, instantly, or within a week, within 2 weeks. But this is a month's timescale.
Yeah, I imagine so. Well,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. And again, people can go to 10to8.com/frugalpreneur.
All right, and I just have to say, I'm going to have to check with my head of marketing about how much I'm actually allowed to say about the user interface.
Oh, okay. So I might
I'm
have
gonna
to edit
assume
some of
it's
that out.
just have you've been chatting with Anna, right? So
Yes. Uh huh.
yeah, so we can just have a little three-way chat and check that that's all fine. I think she wants to start talking about it publicly, so
Oh,
she'll
okay.
probably be quite happy. But I just need to double check.
Oh, okay.
don't
Yeah.
don't
Just
want to, don't want to get in trouble with my team or tread on any toes.
yeah. No problem.